Ready? Cool.
I'm going to start drinking first.
So just, again, show of hands, who here currently uses a buyer-broker agreement as a standard of practice?
Okay.
Brandon, okay.
I missed the question.
Buyer-broker agreement as a standard of practice, you always use one, no question? Okay, who here does not want to use one ever, no matter what I say today? Okay, good, we're on good footing, that's important. So I'm going to share with you a quick story of the reason why I'll never work without one. A couple of years ago, probably 9 now, I was actually working on a team with Todd Barton, and we had a closing for a very good friend of mine. It was one of my best friends, and he got him a house sold, closed on it, no problem. And you know, with friends, you don't use agreements because they're friends, right? And so he actually had a twin, and he referred me his twin brother. And he says, hey, you got to help my brother buy a house. And so what did I do? I didn't put together an agreement because they're brothers and I grew up with these guys and they're wonderful, right? So I start the process of showing him and his wife homes. By the way, today, she's been the worst client I've ever had. To this point in the business, I don't know how many hundreds of homes I've sold. She's been the worst client I've ever had and literally drugged me to 200 homes. There's no question that if a home came on the market, we had to go see it. It didn't matter if it fit their budget. It didn't matter if it was what they wanted. We had to go see it. And that was, she was adamant.
I always thought Chris was never
Exactly. I was out showing her houses. So we go out and, and I'm thinking I'm doing this because the dad is loaning them the money and he's involved, the brother's involved. And I mean, I take this whole family, it's like a caravan every time we go to look at property. And so finally, after looking at 200 resale properties, they buy a new home. First off, you never know what your client's looking for unless you ask them, right? So I ended up putting them into contract on a new home. This is 2006, very end of 2006. And so they say it's going to take 6 to 7 months for the home to be completed. I'm like, great, no problem. So of course, I get the contract done. I get them excited. We go into contract. They put up their earnest money, which is at that time, $20,000. They pick all of their options and everything else. Everything's good to go. A month goes by. And I kind of check up on them. Hey, how you doing? Oh, everything's great. We're so excited about the new house. We're looking at furniture. Don't do that. Don't buy any furniture. You can't do that until the deal's done. Remember, tell your clients not to make any major purchases. Month 2 goes by, month 3 goes by, month 4 comes by. And I said, hey guys, the builder is getting ready to get completed a little ahead of schedule. I have some great news. Because of the market we're in, I got the builder to drop the price on your house $50,000. Because at that time, prices were going the opposite direction. And so, oh my God, that's great. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Month 5, I get a phone call from them. Hey, Chris, the builder just called us. They wanted us to get to contract. And about that, we actually have moved into our new home. And I'm like, you what? She's like, well, we went to an open house. We love the property. We bought it and we just closed on it. So we would like you to see if you could get us out of that deal and get our earnest money back. I'm like, really? First off, that's horrible. Second off, who would make that phone call to a realtor, right? And third, who would ask the realtor to get you your earnest money back after you just, treated them horrible and wrecked their dreams? Now, this is 2007, and as Todd will tell you, that was my only closing. Not for the month, but for the year, right? And it just went away. And so what did I do? I went and got the earnest money back. And surprisingly, the builder gave it to us, which is crazy. And so then I made a phone call to the dad and I said, hey, I'm a little surprised. Did you know the kids bought a house? And he says, yeah, I gave them the money like I said I would. And it was just their decision. And so the whole thing was I got burned. I spent months supporting them. I showed them hundreds of properties. And at the end of the day, I got screwed. And did they do it to me or did I do it to myself? And so what I figured out is that I needed a good agreement that I put in place before I show anyone any homes. And I need to make sure that they understand the agreement that if they go buy that house because they went to an open house, they're going to pay me a commission. Because at the end of the day, all of you are running small businesses. Would you agree? And who can have a business that doesn't make any money? The federal government. That's right. Okay, great. So first off, I've made it a requirement in my business because of that situation that every time I meet with a buyer, regardless if they're a family. By the way, family has to have 2 agreements because sometimes they just don't understand that they'll say, oh, don't worry about it, Chris's family, it's okay, he'll do that. No, family needs to have the best meeting with you to know that this is a business, it's not because we're friends and we're related, right? And so for every client, I have an initial interview. They have to come in and interview for me to want to work with them, and I want them to understand what I require of them before we decide to go out and look at property. Is there anyone here that does a buyer presentation? Okay.
I do a consultation.
Okay, and I love it because it is like, therapy, right? What do you do in this consultation? What is the goal?
Find out their wants, their needs.
Okay, what kind of house we're going to buy? That's important when you go to look at homes, right?
Setting the right expectations.
The expectations. Is it theirs or mine?
Both.
Both. I've seen a lot of agents go to an appointment to meet a buyer and just throw up on them. Oh my God, I was president of the board of realtors. It's so exciting. I've sold thousands of homes, thousands of homes. And the market, it doesn't matter. Just pay me the money, you'll get the house, right? But yet they're talking about who? Them. I haven't even talked about the seller or buyer, what could happen. I mean, the whole reason I need to have this interview is to find out everything about their why. Why are they here? Why today? What do they hope will happen? And what are they prepared for? Now, what type of market are we in right now? Seller's market. What does seller's market mean? It means the seller controls the outcome most of the time. But what else does it mean? Say again?
Low inventory.
Low inventory leads to a lot of what that are unhappy? Buyers. Right now, I could put a Facebook ad out that says, I get buyers into homes. I'd have 10 leads, right? Literally, I mean, there are buyers upset. You have buyers right now that you don't know are upset. And why are they upset? Because they haven't gotten a house yet. But the question is, what expectations did I set before we started the process? So I'm going to read with you, and Todd is actually going to be my fake buyer, right? And I'm going to role play this with Todd, but these are the questions that I asked. Now, I always wanted to have this meeting in person at my office. Why?
So you can control it,
Face to face,
and you can control it.
professionalism, and control. But the point is, when you come to my office,
Home field advantage.
it's a home field advantage, and you actually see that I do this for a living, right? There's people here that also work here. The lights are on. There's office space. There's a lovely lady to greet you when you walk in that puts you into a conference room, whether you want to or not. But it's a process. When you go to a doctor's office, right, and you wait in the waiting room for an hour for 5 minutes of fun, it's a process. But are you prepared for it? Absolutely. So I want them here in my office to show them that this is real. I'm a real business, and it means something to them. Now that I've had the whole pandemic and all of us have dealt with it, most of these interviews have switched to Zoom. But does the process change? No. It's still the same point that we're going to meet face to face before I put you into my car or we do anything. Here's a couple of tips for when you do have this meeting in person again. Let's say that there's two buyers. There's Todd and his wife, and they walk into my office and we sit down at a table with 4 chairs. Okay? Todd takes the chair on the left. His wife takes the chair in front. Where do I sit? There's only 2 options.
You tell them to move over so that way you can
So the rule of thumb is you sit at the right hand of the power.
What if you don't know?
Well, that's a good question. So
You might be changing chairs.
So this is absolutely the truth, and I'm telling you this is a sales skill. If I walk into the room and I've had conversations with Todd and his wife, who has done the majority of the talking? Well, Todd and I have been the only ones communicating with each other, and so at this point right now, he's the one that's been making all the decisions. If his wife was the one who wanted to buy the house and get the process going, she may have been the one making all of the decisions. But right now, he's the power. So I'm going to walk in and sit right here at his right hand. You never want to slide a contract across to somebody because we're adversarial. You want to slide it next to somebody, right? And the other side is, if I find out during the conversation, oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. Hold on a second. I may move over because that's the point, right? Let's talk about conversation. So first question I ask a buyer is, tell me why you've decided to enter the market at this time. Now, I know all of you are saying, are we going to get these questions later? Yes. I did not give them as a handout because I know what happens to handouts. It gets in your car, and then 2 months later, you throw it away, and then you call me and say, hey, can I have that handout? So instead, I'm just going to ask you to email me when the class is over, and I'll send it back to you. So number 1, tell me why you've decided to enter the market to buy a house. Why would I ask that? Motivation, right? And so what do I mean by enter the market? What's the market? It's competition. It's a rat race. It's the bulk of everybody that they've been hearing about, the news articles, the relatives, the friends at work. That's the market that they're jumping into. Why now are you jumping headfirst into this process? I want to know why behind it. So Todd, if I asked you the question, tell me why you decided to buy a home in this market, what would you say?
Well, we're just tired of renting.
Oh, I love that reason. That's a great reason, right? Tired of putting my money in someone else's pocket. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to write it down next to my notes. And by the way, if you ask questions without writing answers, does it mean you don't care?
Yes.
Yeah, it does, right? I take a lot of notes during these meetings for my personal benefit, but I'm writing things like, doesn't want to pay someone else's mortgage, wants out and to get equity, right? Because these are the reasons why I'm going to bring up later when he has problems with the things that I say.
Just a preference question. Do you prefer to handwrite or type? Like sometimes I'll put it right in my CRM. Do you think it's ruder to put it into your CRM or should you type it?
I know that I should be technology savvy, but I write everything down. My desk is a paper mess, right? But like Todd, once I get something good, I have someone put it into electronic format to make it easier for me. But I think in this day and age, it's faster to write something than it is to type in front of them. It's just my personal preference. But however you do it, I don't care, as long as you're taking notes. Okay, question number 2. This is a big one. Do you currently own any other properties? Last week, in our referral system here at Signature, we placed a referral for an agent that wasn't actually the listing agent on the property. They just happened to go to the home and they were in the process of talking to the seller because the seller engaged them, which is allowed. And they said, where are you moving to? And the seller said, we don't know. Someone had listed their house and never asked the question, where are you moving to? Right? The reason I asked this question is if I didn't ask them, do they own other properties, can I sell those properties? No, I don't even know they have them. And does it tell me they're seasoned? And seasoned, I don't mean extra pepper, I mean like they've been through the process before, and when you go through a process and you don't like it, you build what? Animosity, right? They've been scorned by somebody else. Also, when I was working with Todd on our team, I went out to a FSBO, and I'll never forget this guy, his name was Giuseppe, and I get to his house, and I'm sitting in my car doing my scripts and role play. I mean, the guy was at the window, I can't imagine what he saw. But I get in the house, as soon as I walk in the house, I lost the listing, there's no question. 3 hours later, I left the house, right? I mean, this guy took me by the arm and we went through his home and I don't know what happened after. And the only thing I did get out of that conversation was I had asked him during the deal, did he own any other property? And he had a vacant piece of land. And so I went back to the office and told Todd I didn't get the listing, but I did get a listing on a piece of land that he had not intended to sell, but because I asked, he talked about it. Again, that's why I asked the question, do you own any other properties? Next question, and here's where it gets funny. Do you need to sell any other properties or liquidate any funds in order to purchase this property? Where do people keep their money? Sometimes the bank, right? Sometimes the mattress. I've had a lady show up at the office with a box of money and say, this is my proof of funds. So I took a picture of it and I went and asked the broker, is this okay? No, it's got to be seasoned. But the whole point is, if their funds aren't liquid or if it needs to have action to make it happen, why am I looking to help them buy something they can't buy, right? I need to go out and get those items ready and figure out a plan for them to sell the other property, sell off their 401k, cash in their kids' college fund, whatever it is. We've got to figure it out so we can do that. So that's the first question. And if it is sell another property, I need to take that into consideration as we go through this. My second question of the same idea is, does anyone owe you any money? Anyone here ever loaned money to somebody? I have, right? Relatives and friends, why not? But the whole point is now I'm entering into a negotiation to buy a house in a competitive market. And if they say, well, yeah, my dad or my friend or they do owe me some money, okay, great. Is there any chance if we get into a competitive situation that you could call that loan due and be able to liquidate those funds? Because if I don't ask about it, what do? They don't think about it, right? And so that's all I'm doing is I'm generating ways for them to get money for the deal to be competitive. Question number 2, under that same grind. Will you be the only buyer? You ever do a buyer presentation with a buyer and someone else shows up and makes all the decisions? Right? Oh, this is the best one. I had a guy I went to high school with, him and his wife. We have a buyer presentation. They signed my buyer broker agreement. The only problem was I was dealing with the wrong principal. The mother was the one loaning them all the money for the house. And when she showed up, I was no longer their agent, right? Because I didn't cater to her, I catered to them. And so after that happened, my question now is, are there any other buyers? Because it's important. The other question is important. Who else will take part in the process of showings? If I don't know that their cousin is the one going to come view all the houses because they work during the day, is it of value to me to show homes to their cousin? I mean, what is that going to be like? I'm going to take him through all these properties. He's going to say, I like it. And then they're going to come and knock it down? I mean, is that worth my time? Again, this is a business, and every hour that I take away from generating business to make business happen, I'm costing myself money. So I need to make sure that the process makes sense on who's doing it. Next question. Do you have a 401k? What's 401k all about? Retirement and savings. And guess what you can do with your savings one time? You can use it for your primary residence. And then once you sell that primary residence, you can use it again for another primary residence. But the whole point is that's cash that's sitting somewhere that they can borrow against for their down payment. What's the hardest thing for a buyer to get? Did we just answer the question, right? Whole idea. Most people don't think about it because they're conditioned to just put money away in it and not talk about it. But now when you're buying a home, if you bought a home 2 years ago, do you have a lot of equity in your property? Yes. Absolutely. And what can you do with that equity? Cash it in. Okay, last one on the same field of questions, and this one is my favorite. Does your employer know you're looking to buy, and do they offer you any incentives? Why would an employer offer an incentive to a buyer to buy a house?
Keeps them there.
Keeps them there in the marketplace. A stable employee, and stable is a loose term, a stable employee is a good employee. When they live and grow as a family in the marketplace in which they work, they're going to be more stable for the employer. And so pretty much every Fortune 500 company has some basic incentive for their employee to buy a property where they're working.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, my brother-in-law works for Cisco Systems, right? He's a WebEx manager for Verizon and something that they own. His company, as a benefit, just an HR benefit, will give him 1% to use however he wants in any home purchase.
1% of the purchase price?
1% of the purchase price, doesn't matter. And here's the best part, he works from home, right? Walgreens, any union, by the way, if they're, let's say they're a trade worker and they work for the culinary union has a special program for the members to buy properties. Heck, Geico has a special program for the people that are employed by them. I sold a home to a guy who worked for Liberty Mutual. Liberty Mutual had an incentive for him to buy a house. But do most people know that? No. Did you get all excited in your employee interview when they said, oh my God, we give incentives to buy a home, and you're like, yes? No, you didn't even think about it, nor did you care. But the realtor inside of me got excited when I found out about it. Because let's say we get down to closing and we're short $3 or $4 grand. Did I just find the money? Yeah. Right? Let me ask you a better question. I'm going to charge them more commission than everybody else. Did I just find how to pay for it? Yeah. Right? Okay, you're catching on. Okay, let's move in some more logistics. I love to ask this question this way. This is from my father. Do you want to pay cash for the home, or did you want to get a loan? Now, you know that you've met that client. There's no way they could pay cash for lunch, right? But when I ask you that question, do you want to pay cash or get a loan, how does it make you feel?
Like you can.
It makes me feel important, like I can. Is that how I want my clients to feel? Absolutely. But what do most people say? No, we want to get a loan. Why would I get a loan now even if I had the cash?
Cheap money.
Cheap money. Interest rates have never been lower. Now it's almost like a reverse investment. Think about it. If I get a home right now at 2.25% because I bought down my rate, and interest rates go up to 6, 7%, and there's somebody who has to get a home and I have it, we used to sell interest rates back in the 80s. Not me, I wasn't born yet, but people did, right? They did sell the difference in the rate, and if I had a 2% rate on $500,000 and the rate is now 6% on $500,000, did I just make 4% on my money? Tell me where you're going to get 4% on your money right now. Very limited, right? If you do have cash to purchase, do you have a proof of funds you can share with me? When they say, what's a proof of funds? Well, I need to show a seller that that money is liquid in some place. I asked this question during a virtual buyer consultation, and when he sent me his $6 billion proof of funds in his Wells Fargo account, that was the end of the communication, okay? Because no one keeps $6 billion in their checking account, even if you had it. It was fraud. If it's a loan, do you have a great lender relationship you'd like to work with, or do you want me to recommend one? Now, why can I not just go, hey, you need to work with Shelley to get this loan?
Steering.
I'm steering them to one person. I didn't provide them with any options, right? Now, what are they going to say to me? Chris, who do you recommend we use? I always recommend 3, but the way I recommend is very important. Well, for my own purchases, I use Shelley over at Prosperity, but I have several other lenders that are fantastic. Right? Presentation is key. However, I've also had people that I didn't know had connections with certain organizations. And so let's say that their mother is an executive at Wells Fargo, and I'm over here pitching another lender. Did I just lose them? Possibly. So you always want to leave it open-ended that they make the decision, but usually I'm leading them towards the best decision, right? Any questions on what I just said? Anything that you do different that you'd like to share with the group? No? Okay, feel free. Okay, Mr. Buyer, Todd, I need to let you know, I'm glad you're in the marketplace. I'm glad we're here, we're talking with each other, and I just need to let you know, before I'll put you in my car, I have to make sure that we have the right program for you and your family to be able to buy the best home for you and your family. Can you understand what that means?
No.
No, can you share me? No, I have no idea.
Absolutely. Well, Todd, what I mean by it is, I would hate to take you out and show you $3 million homes when you only want to spend $1 million. I'm sure that, after showing you $3 million homes, that every $1 million home isn't going to be exactly what you want. So what I'd like to do is be able to talk with the lender to make sure the payment, the down payment, and the cost makes sense for you and your family before we go any further. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Perfect. By the way, the worst thing in the world that you can do is take a buyer's word for it at what their price point is, because you show an $800,000 home to that buyer, and then they say, oh, I only want to spend $500. Are they going to buy anything? No, they're going to hate everything that you show them because you showed them what life could be like and then sold them the crap, right? And so you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't do that. Now, again, I do know that Todd's cousin Vinny owes him $100,000. We might be able to make that work, but thank God I asked that question to make that happen. Okay, now I still have not presented them with my buyer broker agreement, right? Not yet. Have I decided yet to work with them? No, and here's the next set of questions on how I will. Todd, have you and your family viewed any other homes since starting the process?
No.
No, best answer, right? No. What do people say?
Yeah. You drove around and looked at some houses in Zillow.
Yeah, all of those things are true, and Todd's probably lying, right? Because no one calls me after not even thinking about it, right? They've been to an open house, they saw a home in the neighborhood that got them excited. The reason open houses work is because most people don't use buyer broker agreements, and someone ends up walking into that home and buying that house, right? That's why I hold them open. But the whole point is Todd's not going to tell me he's been out cheating on me, right? He's going to just, nope, haven't looked at anything else. We're waiting for you. But the whole point is, I at least am going to ask him the question. Todd, by chance, I know you said you haven't been out looking, but have you been to any new home communities?
Oh, yeah, we go every Sunday.
That's absolutely 80% of the time correct, right? Or we just like to go out and look at homes we had no intention of buying, but we like to see what's in the marketplace. I have a client like that goes to every new home community. She just likes to do it, right? I've now registered her at every one, but she still goes every week. But the point is, if I'm out shopping new homes and I'm all excited, I've now committed my time and energy, and Todd said, no, I haven't seen anything. We walk in the home sales office, hey, Todd, would you like your usual water? Am I selling that home? The builder's not going to pay me a dime, right? The other question I'm going to ask, Todd, I know you said you haven't been out looking, you haven't been in any new home communities. Any chance you've been by an open house?
Yeah, every weekend.
Every weekend. The reason I'm asking this is it's a procuring cause issue. If that agent is the listing agent, held the home open and showed Todd the home and asked him to write an offer, and that was just yesterday, am I going to have a procuring cause issue possibly for me to get paid? Absolutely. But at least I know that going into it, not when it happens to me, right?
Well, I think the point of knowing that it exists is you can negotiate it up front instead of getting blindsided the day after closing.
Yep.
With an email from one of the brokers that says, we're coming after your commission.
So here is my hook. Okay, ready for this one? At this point, I now know most of the things I need to know if I'm willing to probably work with Todd in a gross sort of way. Todd, if I agree to work with you today, you've got to make one commitment to me, that you won't go see any homes for any reason without me. Can you agree to that?
Say it again.
Todd, if I decide to work with you, will you agree that you won't go see any homes for any reasons without me?
Oh, yeah, we've been waiting for you.
Seriously, right now, this is a breaking point for me. If he says, well, no, Chris, I mean, we're still going to go out and look at homes. Okay, well, then obviously you don't need a committed agent out looking for you. Can you understand the value of having an agent that's all I do all day is try to find you homes to look at? And I'm sure you could understand that that's what I'm doing all day, and you're out looking at homes. It's a complete waste of both of our times, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah. That makes
I mean, you wouldn't want to go to work and not get paid, right?
right.
Okay. Is that fair? Am I being mean? Greedy? Horrible?
Would you say that to a client?
Absolutely.
That you wouldn't want to go to work without getting paid?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a job, right? I mean, I'm not doing it for free.
I've actually said it.
Yeah. I've said it to him. I mean, Brandon didn't hire me to work for free, right? I mean, he knew he'd have to pay me when he agreed to hire me. But the whole point is that this is people doing business. And so for some reason, realtors take the money they're going to make and they just put it over here. Well, that's what the client does. You took it and put it over there, they're going to leave it over there, right? But this is a job. He's hiring me for a job. Is that right? Now, I know that the money that I'm going to get paid probably will come from the seller, but he's the one who's hired me, not the seller. So we should have that conversation up front, not at the end. Okay. So Todd, I just want to reiterate, and this is very, very important because we're going to talk about how my process works in just a minute, but I need to let you know that if we go any further and you go to a new home site without me, you could owe 2 commissions. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so last question, Todd, and it's just something I'm required to ask for my broker. Have you signed any other agreements with any other agents?
No.
No, okay. By the way, I've had a guy come into my office, sign my agreement. He had 18 others. 18. He just figured it didn't matter and no one would ever say anything. So he just signed every agreement that came across. Sure. We've also had a guy that signed 6 or 7 listing agreements. People do dumb things in business, right? Okay, so I asked him, are you seeing any other people? He said no. Todd, what times work best for you and your family to view the right home for you?
Oh, I work for a great company. I can go anytime.
The reason I ask this, if he says any answer, what has he decided to do?
Work with you.
Do you need that shot to your enthusiasm to make you feel good about asking him to sign a contract, right? I asked him when he wants to go look at homes, and he said, every Saturday. We've just made a commitment, right? Okay, and then before I go into the actual paperwork, which we'll do in just a second, Todd, before I go any further, do you have any questions for me? I've had people walk in with lists of questions. Now, am I going to answer every question right now? No. But what I want to know is if they start asking questions, they're also buying, right? Chris, we came with this whole list of items that we'd like to go over with you. Okay, would you rather do it after we go through my agreement or right now? And usually they'll say, oh, well, let's go through the agreement first. But the point is that at least they're engaging, and I need to know that he's engaged. Because if he's not, this meeting is pretty much over. And let me ask you, would you rather it be over right now, amiable, and you're on your way out the door, or would you rather sit with him for another 2 hours with nothing to do? I've actually been stuck in meetings I can't get out of, right? And so I'm going to be honest with you. If you're a good prospector generating more clients, he is not the only thing I came in for work for today. He is just one of many clients that I need to generate to hit my goals. And so if he does not want to work with me because what I said didn't make sense, he doesn't like me as a person, we decided that I can't stand him, then I need to part ways now. Todd, listen, your time is extremely valuable to me. I've got another appointment in about 15 minutes. It sounds like this isn't going to work out, and I wish you the best. Would you like me to refer you to another agent? What did I just do? Right? Because there are things I'm not willing to do any longer in my career, and I've made that decision. But that doesn't mean I won't make money from every opportunity. Right?
Nelson took it away too, though.
Huh?
Nelson took it away, so.
You never know. All right, so let's go over the documents.
So just real quick, some of the things to point out is that Chris has made this a business adventure, not a, I mean, we want to be, we know that this business is about personal connection. It's about building relationships. It's about helping people and being connected with people. But if that's the only way that you go after it, you're going to get caught more times than not in a bad position when it comes down to a bump in the road down the road about commission, right? And so having a buyer broker agreement is what's going to keep your business, is what's going to keep your your dollar per hour productivity up to where it needs to be successful in the business and to make money. So making sure they understand this is a business decision, making sure that they understand that. I think one thing that's key that he said is that you make sure they understand that you may choose not to work with them. It's one of the biggest, it's called the takeaway close, right? It's like, wait, what, are you saying that you would actually not work with me? And that's a great conversation to have with people because that causes them to value you and your time and your expertise at a much higher level. It's actually the script that I start that conversation with. And I'll say to people, one of three things are gonna happen today. Number one is you're gonna like me, you're gonna like my team, you're gonna see the value we bring to the process, you're gonna understand the buying process, and you're gonna wanna work with me, and that's my goal today. This is where I would like this to end. You also might decide, number two is you might decide you don't wanna work with me, you don't like me, you don't understand what I'm saying, we don't connect, and you don't wanna work with me. If that happens, I'm not offended. This is a business decision. That's not my goal though.
Yeah.
And last and most, I may decide not to work with you. And if I decide not to work with you, I don't want you to be offended. It's just a business decision. I would rather let you know today that I can't help you reach your goals than let you down 30, 60, or 90 days from now.
Yep.
So does that all, I mean, so that, I start that, I think that's one of the biggest part of any buyer consultation is that initial upfront, hey look, here's three things that could happen today, and I hope it's number one, and that's my goal, and that's what we're gonna work towards. And as he gets through the paperwork, I'll just say it now so I'll say it later, when I get to the bottom and I'm sliding the paperwork over, I say, guess what? I'm picking option number one. I'm ready to work with you. Are you ready to work with me? We need to sign this paperwork.
Yep.
I've set them up for signing later because I'm gonna pick number one.
Yep.
So you're not answering their questions till after they sign though?
I mean, what? I'm not giving advice for free.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Gosh.
So this is like literally, they walk in, this is, you're sitting down, this is your first conversation.
Yeah. Well, let's take that back.
After the phone conversation.
If they came into my office, I should have pre-qualified them a little bit, right? And I think that any good agent that is doing this like a business, you should have a little bit of a script that you go into before you have an actual meeting. Because I meet you at a bar. We meet at a bar. Hey, you want to buy a house? I sell houses. This is great. I go through a few questions to set up for this meeting, right? But I at least know he's out looking to buy a house. And I know that he has some idea of what it takes to buy a house, but that's in preparation of my internal pre-qual for this meeting. This meeting is about me picking them or them picking me. The whole point of what Todd said, and the reason why I said sit at the right hand of power, right, is I always want to negotiate from a place of power. And scarcity has no power. Most agents practice scarcity where they don't have a buyer, they don't have any sellers, and so they'll do whatever for anything. And until you get over that mindset, until you understand that your time is the greatest power that you have, and where you spend it is the thing that you can actually control, why would I do this stuff? Right? I mean, this is all I have is my time. And the more time I have invested in good activities, the more money I'm going to make, because I am doing this to make money. The side effect is I get to help people. Right? Giving keys to a brand new family that never thought they could own a home is the greatest feeling in the world. And so is the $10,000 I got paid to help them do it. Right? It's the point.
Hopefully more.
Hopefully more. Okay, so
I'm jumping the gun a little bit
Yeah.
here, but so this is the first meeting. They don't even know you at all. how do you respond when they say, well, hey, I like what you're telling me, I love everything, but like, I don't know if you're really gonna like show up and really do the job, I don't wanna sign this today.
Sure.
Are you totally just, sorry, I'll refer you to another agent?
So not yet,
Build that relationship still?
not yet, because I still have more tricks to play. And these aren't tricks, these are sales tactics, right? But listen, I'm not a Kung Fu master, you can tell. But I am pretty damn good at this job. And I do sell a lot of properties, and I've learned the right way and the wrong way, and I spent a lot of money, a lot of my own money learning the wrong way. Every one of those lost buyers was a lesson that I invested in myself. And so the whole point of it is I've learned through trial and error the right and wrong way to do some of these things, and then there are just some people that just shouldn't work together. I mean, I've met several clients that I pushed myself where I shouldn't have, and they literally just beat the hell out of me. Like, it was never a value for any one of us. I had a guy that I knew I never should have worked with, but he was buying a lot of property, so I said, why not, right? And I remember Christmas about 2010, in a market that had no inventory, I put 14 homes under contract in 1 month for this investor. 14. And guess what happened on like the week before Christmas? He canceled 13 of them.
What?
This was so bad. I actually had, him and I think we're still working together. I had to sell a minimum commission. There wasn't even enough money in the deal for me to get a regular percentage. I had to say I had a minimum that you had to do, right? That's how bad the market was. The average price was like $138,000. And so this guy, but every deal was never about the deal. It was just about to see what he could get out of it. That's all he was doing this for. And so he canceled 13. And at that day, I got up the next morning and I fired him as a client. Well, he was still, by the way, buying 7 or 8 homes every year for me. There was no question. He was going to close on them. But did I need that struggle and pain? No. I didn't. The day I fired him, 2 days later, I got the best investor I've ever had. The universe listens. Okay, back to the paperwork, right? And we'll get to your point in just a second as we get through it. But you're going to notice that I only have 2 documents. Why do you think I only have 2 documents?
Because apparently you emailed them the RDG before the meeting. That's what I'm saying.
Nope.
These are the most 2 important ones.
So these are the 2 important ones. The RDG is required that I provide it to a client. I'm going to. I'll get there. But the whole point is that I have a duties owed. A duties owed is required by state law. Before I sign any agreement with a consumer, it has to be signed. Is it a contract? No. Do I start off with, this is not a contract? Yes. Listen, I really appreciate sitting here with me, providing the information, and I believe I can help you and your family achieve your goals. Before we go any further and I share with you anything else, state law requires that because you might be sharing information with me that's of a confidential nature, I need to provide to you the licensing disclosure guidelines in which I have to adhere to with you and with all parties in the marketplace. Can you understand why I'm presenting that? Yes. Okay, great. So you're going to notice on this document, it lists me because it's important that you know my name, the broker I work for, and the company I work for with our license numbers. It's also going to provide you with all the information that I as an agent must do for you by law and what I must do with all the parties in the transaction. It's non-negotiable. I must do it. And so the whole thing about this that I think will matter to you is I have to be honest. Do you want an honest agent? Yes. Absolutely. Okay, great. Down below, you're going to notice it gives you a choice, may or may not. And here's a question I have for you, Mr. Buyer. I am also a listing agent, and I pride myself on listing great properties that are effectively priced in the marketplace. Do you want to be able to view those homes as well? Yeah. Okay, great. Then you have to check may on this document for me to show you anything that I've listed, because I've already formed agreements with those sellers, and if you check may not, I cannot represent you and show you these great properties. Make sense? Yeah. Okay? Go ahead and initial that document. Go ahead and sign at the bottom and date and time. Anything else you're going to get on the duties owed? No. Okay. Next, you're going to see behind that is I've created an agreement between you and I for me to show you homes. Now, Mr. Buyer, you told me that it's important for you and your family that you're in a home in the next 60 days. So I'm going to go ahead and write in this document 2 months. By the way, how long does this document have to be for? A day. It can be a day, a year, a month, a week, anything. I think it scares buyers a little bit. I stopped writing 1 year even though I could get it signed, because if I say 1 year, what do you think as a buyer? Damn, it's going to take you a year? You know? So I'm keeping this receptive where I'm at. Now, when I hold open houses, back in the day, I would always have a duties owed and a buyer-broker agreement ready to go with me, because when someone walks into my open house and I have no contract ready for them to sign, what do I have? Nothing. And what am I? An idiot, right? Because if I'm not ready for a buyer to sign a contract when they come in for the whole purpose of me meeting buyers, I've set myself up for failure, right? And so with this document, I've had buyers say, well, Chris, we don't want any long-term agreements. How about for today? How about I close this open house right now? Once you sign that agreement, and we go out and view homes today, and if you buy one of them, you pay me a commission. Are you working by agreement? Right? Could you institute that as your policy? You only work by agreement? Okay. Could you make it for a week? Hey, listen, I hear that you're saying you're in from California for the weekend. Funny enough, I'm working this weekend. It's perfect pairing. It sounds like you're looking for homes. I'm selling homes. Let's do an agreement for this weekend. Give me Friday to Sunday to find you a home, to put you under contract. Will that work for you? Now, if you sign this agreement once, might you sign it again? Yeah. Well, you know, this week has been really tough. This is one of the hardest sellers markets in the last 2 decades, and we have really competed. And I'm sorry that we haven't got our offer accepted yet, but I'd like to put another weekend. Would you sign one more week with me? Right? That's the whole point of it. But on this document, I'm going to put, let's say for the sake of this conversation with Todd, 2 months. Usually going to take about 30 days, maybe 40 to find a home, and I want some breathing room. So I put that on the document. Go ahead and initial the bottom of each page for me and sign at the back.
That's it.
Why?
There's no initial.
What do you want to go over?
Wow, okay.
Because they have been,
What did what do you already know? What do you already know?
That you're, you know.
You know I'm a realtor, that I sell houses. Okay, great. That's one. You know the time frame. That's 2. Did you ask anything else?
Yeah, because we're asking why we're rejecting the extra payment that they have to pay you.
Okay. Do they have to pay it now?
No.
I'm just telling you, stop making questions for your buyer to ask you for you to fail at. Right? Now, most people are astute enough to say, well, Chris, what do you charge? You want to know my answer? A lot. That's the best answer that it's worked for me in every time. A lot. Because what do you usually do? Laugh. Listen, if you can't be good, be funny. If I make you laugh, are you still with me? Yeah. Listen, Mike, I'm just kidding. I charge the value of my service based on the situation we could be in and the fact that I'm the only person that's going to be doing this for free if you don't get a house. Is that the type of agent you're looking for?
That's pretty good.
Right? Because I am working for free, by the way. If he doesn't buy a house, do I get paid?
No.
No. So why am I so afraid to charge him when it actually happens? Is he working for free? Is he calling me every night? No. He's going to bug the hell out of me every second of every day. And he's going to hate everything about whatever I do. And I'm doing it all for free. How dare you question my commission? That's how you should feel about it. How dare he question me? Right? This is a service. I don't go to Subway and say, how much for the 5-inch footlong? $5? How dare you? Right? I mean, that doesn't happen. Well, maybe it does, but no one cares. So in this agreement, did I stop on every page? No. Now, here's the difference probably between you and I, maybe. I know what it says on each of these lines, and I could figure it out pretty quick. If you can't do that, get yourself to that point. I've sat in meetings with Todd and other brokers and put this agreement together from our board. And I've had to sit through a lot of meetings, right? State laws, different processes. The whole point is most people never read a contract, and so that's why they're afraid to defend it. So take the time and go through and read it, highlight anything that doesn't make sense or you don't get, and ask one of the brokers why. And they will explain it to you. That's what I do with every team member. You read it, look at an agreement. Don't come ask me questions about an agreement that you haven't even read. That doesn't even make sense. Read it and then ask your questions. But one thing I will tell you that's really important, on here it says residential, land, commercial, and other. I check all 3. And here's why. I had a guy that did a buyer-broker agreement with me, and I checked land on here, and the guy decided he wanted to buy a piece of land up in Reno, and guess what happened? He called me first. Hey, Chris, you know that agreement I signed last week? I want to buy a piece of land up in Reno. Do I have to call you first? Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for doing that. Because technically this document's binding in the entire state. Do I practice in Reno? I could, but I definitely can refer him. And so I referred him to an agent. He bought $1 million piece of land. I got a great referral fee. But the whole point is, I checked it, he read it, he knew it. He called me.
I think as agents, we go through documents line by line and page by page because we don't know what it says. If you guys know what this says, I mean, if you can slide this across the table and you can explain page 1, page 3, you know where everything is on here, you'll be a lot less apprehensive about asking someone to sign it because you will know what it says. And you can defend, or you can present, or you can tell them what it says without getting flustered.
Okay, so Chris, we're putting an offer on a property. The commission is 2%. I signed a buyer brokerage for 3. Chris, I want you to put an offer in on this property. I love it. This is it.
What was your question?
So his question is, hey, Mike, I want to let you know, this is a great house. And do you remember the buyer broker agreement that we signed at the beginning that said you would pay me a 3% commission? Just so that you know, if you decide to move forward on this property, you would be on the hook for that extra percent.
Yeah. Let me clarify this. Let me clarify this a step further for your point, because we're going to go there either way, because half of the people will. Here's the oldest rule in real estate. Number 1, don't believe other people's bullshit. Number 2, when a client wants to sign an agreement, stop stopping them. Some people are ready to sign, they've been through the process before, and they want to sign your agreement, and you keep stopping them from signing. Most people are astute enough to read an agreement before they sign it. Who buys something that doesn't read what they're signing? Nobody. And so I don't force them, I don't make them, I just present it to them and let them decide. And so right off the bat, usually on the first page, well, Chris, what's this 3%? I'm so glad you asked, Mike. I charge for my services 3% of the transaction price, and that's what I'm going to be paid. Now, Mike, there is good news and bad news. What would you like first?
Give me the bad news.
Bad news is you may have to come out of pocket for some money to pay me, but if I can't help you negotiate that money in the deal, maybe it's not worth paying me anyway. You want the good news now?
Yeah.
Most cases, the seller offers a co-op. I can't guarantee it, but I'm going to let you know on each property what that co-op is so that you can make the financial decision whether to buy the house.
And you can write your offer accordingly.
Now, this agreement is something I have to have for me to do business, but I'm also an honest realtor that's never had a complaint. And so when Mike goes and finds the perfect house and it says $500 flat fee, which we're going to get to that more and more, hey, Mike, this home I think is perfect for you and your family. Reminder again, you signed a buyer broker agreement with me. It says that you will pay me a commission of 3%. It's right there in the agreement. This home is only co-oping $500. But I actually ran some comps and found out that the home is below market, not in this market. The home is below market, and it looks like they just took the co-op they would have given off of the price. Do you want me to ask the other agent if they'd increase the co-op, or are you okay paying the difference?
Those are really good.
Now, you cannot, under any circumstances, refuse to show a property based on its co-op. But there's nothing that says that you can't ask the other agent to participate, right?
And the next step past that is when you have a buyer broker agreement signed by your buyer, it's easier to go to the listing agent and say, hey, listing agent, I have a buyer broker agreement, your co-op is this much.
Yep.
They want to know if you're going to come up to this much, and let's get that in writing before we send over our offer.
There are a few other pieces for me that are standards of practice to make this work for you without a headache and a broker involved that you need to institute as well. And I'm just going to give them to you real quick. I use a net sheet on every offer when I present it for my client. Because if I don't show you the net, I'm a liar. If you sign an offer and I have fees that are being charged and there are things going on, I didn't tell you what they are, I'm a bad agent and I lied to you. And a net sheet can be done on an app. It's so easy that you're not even filling in the blanks. But I should present to you the costs as they're assumed when I'm doing this because that's good business. I said on the duties owed, I have to provide the financials of what's going to happen. And so part of my process to defend against him thinking he gets screwed is that I'm telling him the fees up front before he ever does anything. I mean, that's smart, right? I mean, who buys a car without knowing the price or what it's going to cost you? Nobody. So, I mean, that's one of the ways that I protect myself against him being upset later. Did we even talk about my transaction fee?
No.
You were so focused on the commission that you didn't even ask,
Well, it's the bigger one anyway.
right? I charge $7.95.
Chris, I say that, and I stopped doing it because what happens is every time I do it, and it doesn't matter, but I tell the agent that, and the agent's response to that is, really? You want 3%? And I'm only doing it for 2, which I don't care. That's your negotiation.
Yeah.
So now I just word it as, hey, you know, do you want me to get it from closing costs from, you know, the seller, or do you want to pay the difference?
Sure.
Because every time I tell the agent that, hey, I got a BBA signed and I want to get the money, basically for me, they go, wow, you want 3%? Like, it's like a fight, and the whole transaction is just.
They maybe like me better, I don't know. Hey, listen, the whole thing is, it doesn't matter. Whatever works for you, use it. But the whole point I utilize is as many things as I can. The whole reason I brought up about their company and that money is to help offset the cost if there's a problem. The reason why I negotiate with vendors to help on the pricing, I get good people that I'm guaranteeing volume to, is to help on the pricing. I mean, if I'm saving you money and I'm pointing it out along the way, are you going to be upset about paying me some? What has he had to pay me? Nothing. Most people are buying a house without paying you anything. So who is the most prepared person right now in the transaction ready to pay money? The buyer. He knows he has to pay money to buy something. Why can I not be part of that? And like you said, closing costs are a side effect of one of the ways that I can offset this difference. I can ask in the contract for closing costs. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I make everyone sign this agreement. I'm closing one tomorrow and one last year that are VA buyers that agreed to this exact thing. I can't charge it to them against their loan program. But I did not have them sign it because I do this with every client, or it could be considered discrimination. I do it with every client religiously. This is my process. I do not go away from my process because I have to do it, because if I get out of it, it's a crap process, right? But a VA buyer, I don't make pay it.
Did you still ask the listing agent for the difference if there was a difference?
On the VA buyer?
The VA buyer?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I know a lot of the agents and a lot of their brokers, right? So it's a little easy to call up and say, hey, is there any chance that you consider? Most people are not evil people. And so, hey, I got a buyer that's interested in this market. I'd tell me to no way in hell, right? But this market won't be here forever. But how do I know unless I asked? I had this friend, he's still in the business, I won't say his name, but every deal religiously. Hey, listen, my buyer's going to think about writing an offer on your property. Any chance you'll pay a bonus? Doesn't matter. This is a $2 million house he's writing on, by the way, with a 3% co-op, and he still asked for a bonus. Guess what the seller did?
Give him a bonus.
Amazing, isn't it? Now, I'm not saying go out there and start asking for, this is not why I'm bringing this up, but I'm just saying sometimes the questions you don't ask were where you would have made the most money. And so what does it hurt to ask a question? As long as I don't offend you in the way that I ask it. Robert, man, you're really cheap with these co-ops. Will you up it for me? Right? But by the way, the reason why I also work by buyer broker agreement is I've defended myself against myself. Do you think I co-op 3%?
No.
Why the hell am I giving you all my money? Your process just started when you showed the house. Mine started 3 years ago when I cared about their kids and went to their ballet recital. Right? And I've insulated me for representing a buyer on my own property. I have gotten 7.5% because that's what the contract says. Right? But again, the whole point is most people aren't going to digest this every piece, but I do point out the big points.
What they're asking, what is the buyer extra, or
Transaction fee?
Transaction.
I am so glad you asked. Let me ask you a question. Has there ever been a time in your life where you got exactly what you paid for? Yeah. And so, I noticed with a lot of my clients that they just didn't have a great experience in the process. It wasn't me, but just all of the little things that make a big difference. And so what I did is I went out and created an entire process that is going to make this seamless for you and your family. Now, unfortunately, I can't include all of that process in the fee that I charge, so here's my transaction fee. I put together the best team possible to give you the best experience possible to make your transaction seamless, and that's the cost of it.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Should I keep talking?
No, unless
No.
he has more questions.
That's number 3 rule. Shut up
Yeah.
and learn how to do it often, right? If I keep talking, what is he now thinking?
It's not true.
It's not true, or I don't believe it. You know how the old saying, horses smell fear? So do clients. And if I'm afraid of my buyer broker fee, they're going to sense that because I don't have any conviction. My transaction fee is not a profit center for me. I pay Signature the fee that they charge for the great brokerage I work for, and I pay my TC. Now, funny enough, I'm related to my TC, but I don't get better service, right? I get treated like every other client, but I know that I don't want to provide her service out of my pocket. I want the client to see the value. And funny enough, she never talks to my clients, but she makes the paperwork seamless. So it's just part of me doing business. You go to check into a hotel room here on the Strip, right? And it says the room is $400 a night. And you're like, great, $400 a night, that's why I decided on the room, the whole thing. And down at the bottom, there's two things. What are they? And taxes. Now, you saw $400 a night and knew that those other fees applied, but you still said yes. Why? Well, number one, I had to have a place to stay because I was motivated and I had a reason why I was going to go there, and I accepted the fact there's a cost associated with running a business. Why is my business any different than that business? Right?
Yeah.
And I've actually used that analogy because people who live here get that. They get that when you check into a resort, there's resort fees for the towels and the fact that you go in and turn the AC down as low as possible. You know you do it, right? And especially at the Aria with all those windows. But the whole point is that we do that because that's what we do. And I know that I'm going to ask for 10 towels and use all of them. And at home, that would never happen. But it's the truth. Okay, real quick, because I only got a few minutes left, and I'll stay as long as you guys want for questions. So this is just to get the contract signed. Now, you're asking me, where are the other 50 documents that go along with a buyer purchase? Once this is over, I'm going to take these documents, I'm going to tell the client, my transaction coordinator, which is part of this amazing process, is going to send you a copy of this executed by my broker, so now it's complete, and she's going to send you all of the other documents associated with your home purchase in an electronic format to make it easy for you. I have not had a client say, no, I want it all in paper, right? Go ahead and print it out at home. But the whole thing is she's going to send all those documents with this, so now they have a copy of everything and they've signed their other stuff, and I've got them used to signing everything electronically, which is my process. Now the real fun begins. I want to get them excited when this meeting is done, when they've actually signed with me. I want to get them a little excited about looking at homes, because excited people do what?
Tell other people.
Tell other people. And do I work on referrals? Yes. So, okay, a couple of questions I go into, and Mr. Buyer, if they say anything about the BBA, I won't work without it. I'm committed to that, and I will get up from the table and leave if they say no. So the whole point is I have conviction in that. I have gotten up from the table and left without a signed contract. Are you ready to do that? Because if you're not, this may not work out for you, like I said. You can't go on a 12-step plan and forget steps 10 and 11, right? It doesn't work that way. Okay, on the back of this, I've included a map. First off, fair housing guidelines may change this entire process, but not because it's a bad process or it violates it, just because of the way it's set up. We used to have a zip code map for the MLS, area codes, right? They're actually going away. You heard it here first. They're taking them away completely, and it's going to revert back to mapping, but the zip codes will still be an easy way to decide property. I don't use this for people picking out codes. I use it to write on the back of what they want in a home. And usually people will say, well, what's the area look like? You know, what's the valley look like? And so I want to have a map where I can show them. Hey, listen, I don't care what you buy, where you buy it, and how you buy it, as long as you use me to do it, right? And so show me now where you currently live. And so they'll point to the map, here's where I currently live. Show me now where you work, and they'll point to where they work. And I'll ask the spouse, where do you work? And they'll point to where they work. And I'll put little dots where that is. Tell me now where you're thinking of living. And they'll point to the other side of town, right? This is all for them understanding why these things make sense. Where do your kids go to school? Where is it that you hang out socially? When they put all these things down on a map, does it put their area into what they're thinking more often? Absolutely. And so on the back of this, I'll start writing things like, okay, don't tell me what you want. Tell me what you have to have. And they'll say, we want 17 bedrooms. And I said, so do me. But what do you have to have? Well, we have to have 2. Okay. Can you live with 2? Or would 1 work if you had a den with a pullout? We have to have 2. Okay, great, 2. So I put in 2. And then they say, well, we have to have at least 2 bathrooms. Okay, are you sure? Could you use 1 toilet? I mean, you got to tell me the minimum. I mean, this is worst case, hottest market ever for a seller. Tell me the worst case. And they'll go through 5 or 6 things, and I'll say, great, hold on just a minute. and I'll turn around when it was on the screen and I'll pull up the MLS. Now this is the best way to get a buyer sold the first time out, okay? You got this list of where they want to be and what they have to have, and you show them how to search for property. Now listen, there's no mystical art to this, right? I mean, our MLS is a search grid, and I'm sure you understand a search grid. You put in conditions and it narrows the search. And so the reason I asked you for the things you have to have is because if you have to have these things, anything that doesn't fit it won't work. Would you agree? And they say, yeah. Great. And so I put it in, and it used to show up, you know, 3-digit number over here, now it shows single or 2, right? The whole question to you is, how many times have you shown a buyer way more homes than you should have? I've done it, right? And why did I do it? Because they were picking properties for me to go view with them instead of me showing them properties that they should be viewing. If I pull this up and we put in their criteria and 6 homes spit out, should we look at anything else? Why do they believe that now versus when they're at home without me?
Because they don't know how it works.
Because they're using other sites.
They're looking at the screen. They know that this is the source for everything they see online is right here, and they told me everything they have to have and it spits out 6. Why would I show them 8, 9, and 10?
Well, that's the whole key is they watched you do it.
Yes.
Like, don't have this set up and, like, take the time that you're in this meeting to actually bring the computer up, to actually bring up MLS. Log into MLS so they can see it.
You can do this by Zoom right now, by the way.
The entire process with them, and they're part of the process, and they now believe that you're not just trying to show them 6 houses.
So get this. This is why I'm telling you this works. So my team manager, Tyson, has a buyer that I put under, same buyer presentation I just did with you. She's an attorney, by the way, okay? Attorneys are always fun. She's a friend of mine that we know each other socially from a place we all hang out, a bar. And she comes in and says, hey, I want to buy a house. I said, great, let's have an appointment, let's meet. We did it by Zoom because she didn't want to come into the office with everything going on. And so I said, great, we'll meet by Zoom. We had our Zoom presentation, it lasted 20 minutes. I said, are you ready to sign the agreement I presented? She said, absolutely. Amy sent it all over for electronic signature instead of me putting it in front of her. And then I shared my screen and we took a look at the marketplace. And it spit out like 10 homes that match what she wants. Guess what? Tyson took her out. One of the 10 she wrote an offer on. She got it accepted. Amazing. And it's already set up to close. But the whole point was we didn't go to 30 different parts of the valley and see how the sun makes us feel and everything else. We went out and looked at the 10 homes that made sense that she could buy, and she bought one. What was your question?
How do you go about it when you have out-of-state buyers?
Oh, good question. So first off, are people moving here to be closer to something usually? Great. And so if it's close to a job, sometimes they've met people that they work with, they have someone that's boots on the ground, right? The best case scenario is that if you're buying a house, you're coming to visit to buy it, right? And so I don't want to drive your friend Eddie around to see all the houses in town. That doesn't make sense because Eddie can't buy any houses, only you can. And so I'd prefer to get you set up to come out to view homes. Sometimes people have said, Chris, we already know the home we want. We just want to see what it looks like. I've actually FaceTime people into properties. We live in a great world, right? I've put FaceTime on, showed them it's me, it's real, and then I've walked them around a home, and I've had people buy a home that way. And then usually they want someone else to come and see how it feels because I don't want that responsibility, right? I want to put that onto somebody else. Just like I can't do the walkthrough for them when they do close on it, they're not here. I need their friend that does the walkthrough for them. Same reason, right? And there's actually a document you should have signed, out-of-state purchaser waiver.
Waive the walkthrough as well.
They could waive the walkthrough, yeah. If there's all these things that are done that make them feel really good about it, why waive it? My 2 cents. Basically, I know this sounds really easy. It sounds like it's not hard at all. It's really not hard if you put it as a process and you prepare for it, right? If you actually read the contract, you understand it, you have conviction in it, you feel good about it, people will sign your agreement. And the ones that won't,
You don't want to work with anyone.
yeah. What questions can I answer on the process or what I did or how I did it or things that you could do or suggestions that you have? Anything at all? You can fight over it.
We all have those clients where, you know, we go through that process and we say, hey, I'm going to look on the MLS, and we circle the map either on an iPad or on the paper. At least I do that. But what happens like a week later on the weekend when they end up like on Zillow and Realtorland?
Yeah.
Hey, I found this, I found that, and they get all these text messages.
So glad you brought that up because that's a big piece of this. So what did I commit to do?
Find them
Work
out.
with them and find them out
When?
within the 30 days.
Every day for that 30, 60 days, right? The problem that happens, and this is why you lose clients, and this is the number one reason why a seller fires their agent is poor communication, is you signed a listing agreement, got them all excited, put up photos, got the home listed, and then you went and prayed for its sale. You never called them again, you didn't talk to them, you didn't share with them what's going on. Same thing with a buyer, and even more so, is that you said I'm gonna work for you every day and I never showed you I was working for you, so they don't believe it. And so it's gotta be in every, because what am I doing? I'm out working with people that haven't committed to get them to commit instead of the person that did. And that's what I had to change in my business is I wanted to work with everybody, now I only work with those that have an agreement. And so if you sign an agreement and I accepted, that's the bigger piece, I accepted to work with you, then every day I come into my office and figure out what we have to do to get you into a home because you've contracted for it. But if I'm in working with a buyer that may want to do it and I'm out at lunch, I can't do that. And that's why you got to take that whole thing off your plate. It's got to be the people that committed. And I think that's a part of the selling value too, is I've committed to do this, I'm going to do it. And you won't have that problem. If I called you every day and we're talking about properties, how could you see anything without me, right? Now here's another side effect. I have a team. I have 18 people that have vested together to say we're going to help each other, right? And so I tell my clients in the meeting that, listen, I don't want to ever hear from you that it was real quick or it only takes a second or you didn't want to bother me. I have somebody somewhere in the valley that will meet you at any second to show you a home. Do not go to a home without me. Do not go to open houses without me. Don't talk to other realtors without me. Even if they're related or you know them, don't talk to them, right? Because every time you talk to them, you cost yourself money. Don't do that. And so I know that I have people that'll jump in their car and run over and show a house because that's the service level I committed to, why they're paying me all this money, right?
Well, part of it on his, I like that. The other part was, just like we were talking about the referral I got with the young lady up in Reno that's
Yeah.
helping my client. She actually found a FSBO.
Yep.
And that is part of the deal, but she got that side of it, also our side of it with our buyer. And she does have, the agreements all drawn up properly.
Yeah.
But that can happen too. It's not really a question, it's more of a statement.
So here's an interesting thing about FSBO. So in a market like this, when sellers don't see value, they try to do it on their own. Okay, there's no way 100% of the sellers are going to do it our way, right? But here's the interesting thing. If I have the buyer that's ready to buy their property and we find it, do I have to work for my 3%?
One more time?
If I have a buyer that I have a buyer broker agreement with 3%, and we find a FSBO that my buyer wants to buy, do I have to work for 3%?
No.
No. Why? The seller's getting a lot of value out of it, and so I can go to the seller and say, hey, listen, any chance you'd pay a 4% co-op, I'll rep my buyer and we'll do this deal.
She's actually getting a
Yeah.
referral.
But my point is, am I representing the seller?
No.
No. But all I did was ask. I said, hey, listen, you wanted to save money? I don't care if you save money. I'm not the one that's going to go to work and put your home up and listen to your crap. My client's ready to buy this house. I'm ready to write an offer right now. Would you pay me a 4% co-op? And I'm not offering them any representation. I'm not going to do any of their stuff. I'm just doing my client's rep, their paperwork, whole thing. There's nothing that says you can't do that. It's just, again, negotiation and the value of what you're doing. There was one more question somewhere. Yes?
So nowhere in your presentation are you negotiating your X percent? You're just kind of putting it in front of them and then wait for a rebuttal?
So the cool thing about the business I've chosen is I decide what my value is, not them. So why should they decide what I put in there, right? I could put 10 if I could sell it, right? And so the whole point is, this is funny, this is like a new agent test sometimes, is that new agents hear things and they're perceptive from what they knew as a consumer, right? And you put together a listing contract, and I usually, Mark, you've been a new agent, you get it, I usually like to not tell an agent what to put in the field. I want to see what they put. And so I had this guy, Rick, that worked for me, and he had gone to a few classes and listened to a few things, and he came running in my office and says, Chris, I just got my first listing. I was like, Rick, man, 30 days on the job, you got your first, that's awesome. Tell me about it. He's like, wow, great house, $350, 8.5% commission. What? What? And he goes, yeah, 8.5% commission. He goes, listen, this house is going to sell right away. I've got it priced right, but the seller is going to be a pain. And listen, I'm only co-oping 2.5% and I'm keeping the rest. So even I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot, you know? And I said, Rick, and it's signed? He goes, yeah, signed. All the documents, I mean, every document was done. And I'm looking at it and I'm reading it and I'm like, wow, this guy's going to be the greatest agent ever. I said, how did you get the buyer? Oh, it's my mother-in-law. And I'm like, enough said, right? But the whole point was, she got it. She said, Rick, I know you're going to work hard to sell my house. I know that this is your job. I know this is what you're doing. I want to help you out. The whole thing. He put it in there and she signed it. Who am I to say that shouldn't have happened, right?
Well, he told you she was going to be a pain.
He did. He did. And the whole thing was, but who would have told him what to put in there? Someone else other than himself. He knew the value he was going to provide, and all of us have to decide it. And if you hired me as your agent, I'm not saying this is true, but just think about it. If I told you you'd save $30,000 on every deal that you did with me, would you pay me more money?
Yeah.
Right? So what's the difference between me doing that and you doing that? Showing it, right? Showing the value. And so along the way, I like to show my client little ways that I've saved them money because it reinforces what they've agreed to do.
Yeah,
It helps.
Get in their head as realtors that 6%, if it was an anti-Sherman Act, that we think
Yeah.
that 6% is the norm when it's not.
There's only one person that can fix commission, and that's the federal government,
Yeah.
right? They actually came out during the Obama administration and said, for FHA properties, we're only going to pay agents 6% commissions. But I can't do that as a realtor, but they can.
At the beginning, you said, okay, if your client, when you are the buyer broker document, and they have already visited
Other properties, yeah.
other
Yeah.
properties or new construction,
Yep.
how do you handle it?
That's a great question. So it never fails that I do have that client that likes to go out on weekends and look at properties. And so the whole guts of it is that if they do decide to buy that property, I now have to make a business decision, right? They said, listen, Chris, we love the Toll Brothers homes. We know that we want this floor plan, and we've already been to the Home Design Center. So my first call is to the VP at Toll Brothers and say, hey, listen, my client was there 6 months ago. I think that they've decided to come back and get interested in it. Will you guys provide a co-op in writing that you will agree to pay me a co-op? And if he says, no, we won't, they've already registered, they've already gone too far, then Mr. Buyer, I can represent you, but you're going to have to pay me that addition. Would you like me to see if the builder will throw in some closing costs or if I can get some incentives to cover it? Now, before the builder might have done it, now I don't know, but I can still try to work to get paid something, right? And they may still see value and is there still value in having me represent them? Who am I going to work for in their benefit? Them. That means me against the builder. If I could save them money or get them a better deal and I can show it, would you pay me some of it? Some may. I've had that happen. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a greedy miser. I don't make them give me money. And I've given up money. I've had multiple clients that have signed my buyer broker agreement, and I knew that this home was their first home or their second home or because of this reason. And I've given up some of my money, but whose decision was it?
Yours.
Mine. And that's whose decision it always needs to be.
That's a good question I want to ask then, Chris. So you have them sign a 3% buyer broker agreement. You get them in contract for 2.5%. Us as an agent are like, well, I'm happy with the 2.5%. I'm not going to force that other half percent. It's a buyer brokerage agreement. We can still make that decision. We don't have to talk to the broker and say, hey, Todd.
Here's what's funny about that.
Agreement says 3%. Do I have to charge them 3% now, or am I able to as a business?
So think about that. The document at the end of the day is always signed by the broker.
Exactly.
So would you just make the decision and say, hey, guess what? Or would you say, hey, guess what happened? This client, this reason, this value, are you okay with that? I don't know one of my brokers that would say no if you could explain it. Yeah, well, you have to get them to sign it, so why wouldn't you explain it? Because they got to sign that document, the other document. And it's your business. We're a conduit in which you do business, right? And so the value is that we're another level of approval, which can also have value. This is another sales tactic, by the way, and it's an authority figure, right? Manager close. And so I'm not bashful. I've used it on a listing, and I'm the broker, right? And so I've gone, hey, listen, what I hear you saying is that if we get this document down to 6.5%, you're ready to sign the contract right now? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Let me talk to my manager. Hey, Brandon, guess what? I'm out at this listing today and they're telling me that even though it's 7% and that's what we charge and that's what I do, they're willing to sign today at 6.5. Are you willing to accept that? Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't think about that. Great idea. Brandon wants to know if you'd be willing to do 6.75. Well, there are other levels between halves, right? There's quarters, eighths. But the whole point is, could that have provided the value? Because with some people, negotiation is the principle of it, not the reason for it.
If you're willing to fight so hard for your client, why wouldn't you fight so hard for yourself?
I put that on my bumper sticker. But the whole point is, use this as a support system. I've never had an agent come in and say, well, Chris, my client's a veteran, their loan program says I can't charge the extra half. Would you be okay if I did? Well, yeah, it sounds like it's a great decision on your part. Now, here's the truth, though. Every time I've done it and not charged those fees, I made damn sure my client knew that I didn't. Because the whole point is that you think you're really generous, they didn't know it happened, right? And so I had a client, Tiffany, great lady, she's a pharmacist, and I had her sign the agreement. I sold her a house. House is 2.5%. Her loan program's VA. I can't charge the transaction fee, which I have to now eat, and I can't charge the extra 0.5%. Hey, Tiff, it's Chris. Now, by the way, I'm smart enough to know the VA loan says that, but I didn't know what we'd end up with, and I treat every client the same, right? Hey, Tiff, it's Chris. Funny enough, the property that you're in contract on that you want to buy, 2.5%. Oh, okay, do you want me to just give you the 0.5%? How does that work? Tiff, let me ask you this. Can I count on you for a referral this year for real estate? That you're going to tell at least one person that I'm in the business and that I helped you out? Well, yeah, I'm going to tell everyone about you. Great. How about you just keep the 0.5% and I'll wait for the referral? Is that better than, hey, guess what? I can't charge you.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the lady I just put into contract was a referral from Tiffany. And she went through the same process.
I just had the same thing where he fought with me, and I said, fine, you know what, it's fine. And literally the next day I said, you know, I really appreciate you taking care of it. It was really hard for us to come up with the money.
Yep.
But he's actually looking for houses to flip on his, whatever. Anyway, so he calls the seller. He's, you know, driving for dollars. He's like, I have this guy I can't help, so I'm going to refer him to you to sell his home.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I had a lady that I got referred, and most of my business is referral. She was selling a high-rise. I charged her a 7% commission. We got into the deal. I kept 4.5, co-op 2.5. Funny enough, the buyer on the other side had a buyer broker. They got their 0.5%. We're in the deal, and for some reason, this buyer freaked out on the request for repairs. And there's literally $500 worth of items on it. I mean, like nothing. It's a high-rise. It's not like there's stuff out everywhere. I mean, it's in one concinct place. And so, but $500 to her was the world. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cover the $500. And I know that you're moving out of state, but if you wouldn't mind, would you mind giving me a great review? And she said, sure. So she gave me this amazing, like 3-page review. I can only use this much of it, but the whole point was that I provided her with something that mattered to her, and it was a good piece of business for me, and it worked, but it was my decision, and she valued it, right? That's the whole piece. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, the agreements, everyone should sit down and read through it, understand what it says and how it works, but the point is don't be afraid of it. And most people aren't going to ask immediate commission questions, so don't force it on them. Let them come to it, and as long as you're honest with everybody, as long as you're providing that value along the way, they will never see a problem with the money they're paying you. It's just the truth. Enjoy your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.